What's up, guys? Eric Coates here, going out for my walk. Apologize for the wind if it's really windy. Nothing I can do. I have to get a better microphone, but let's go for a little walk. And today I wanted to talk about this thing I've heard people mentioning the last few weeks, and that's called vibe coding. V-I-B-E, vibe coding. And I started writing a blog post about it, and then I thought, you know what, this is just too much I want to say. It's gonna take me too long to type it all out and to logically think through it. So sometimes when that happens, it's just better for me to just talk and let it come out. So if you've never heard of it before, if you're like, what the hell is vibe coding? Because I was the same way. I was like, what the fudge is this? And basically, it's letting AI write all of your code, letting AI do your project, and just kind of letting the vibe go with the vibes, of whatever the AI spits out. And God, there's so many things I just don't like about that, and I just don't think are a good idea. So let's get into a couple of those things. So first thing I think is AI is good, but it's not that good. All right, so let's say I want to make a simple web page, simple HTML, CSS web page, very limited, not really connected to a bunch of things. Sure, I could go and just tell the AI what I want, let it spit something out, and then be like, okay, well, can we change the colors? Can we do a blue instead of a green, or whatever the hell that it spits out? And yeah, it'll do it pretty fast. But the problem comes in when you have a more involved project than that, right? So I think the first thing that's an issue is that the AI can't take into your entire code base. It just can't do it. So for me, I think the best example is when I started at my current job. There were two huge code bases that you had to actually get into the code and then find your way around, right? And thank God that there's code editors like VS Code, right? If I ran into a function that was a method, if I ran into a method, I could click on it, go to its definition, find it within the class, and find out what's actually happening with it, right? Let's say you're trying to do that same sort of thing with AI. It's not going to know what you're talking about, right? Even if I was to copy the code snippet, paste it in, it's going to assume that class is doing something similar to what its name is, right? Or if that method's going to do something similar to what its name is, right? So it makes these assumptions, and it could assume wrong. So that's one example. The other example is and I've seen it on Reddit, and I've seen a couple of other YouTubers talking about it, but it's the same thing. Oh man, I've got 40 files, and now the AI can't fix this issue. And the person doesn't know how to code. They don't know what they're doing. And so now they're in that phase where AI just hallucinates. And for those of you who don't know what a hallucination in AI is that the language model, because really AI is not, it's not like the Terminator, a lot of people think it is. AI is just basically a large language model, which means it's a whole bunch of data, and it's data that's been fed, right? So human beings have taken data and fed it, or it crawls the internet and finds this data and puts it in its repertoire, if you say. So let's say I'm building something and I make a class or whatever it is, and then I hit a point in whatever I'm building that the AI hasn't been fed how to fix that, right? Or it's not sure, it can't find something. So what happens is it starts to hallucinate. So that means it's at the brink of what it knows, but its programming has to give you an answer. And so what it does is it says, here's your answer, spits everything out, and you're like, well, if you know what you're doing and you're a coder and you understand it, you'll say, well, no, that's not right because X, Y, and Z, right? And then we've all been there, right? The AI pops back and goes, oh, you're absolutely right. Here's the solution. And then it gives you the same exact shit, right? Well, that's what we talk about with AI hallucinating. It's just making things up. Or it will try to rename your variables and your methods, and it's still just the same shit that it's giving you. That's what's an AI hallucination. So what these people who are vibe coding are people saying, oh, I'm just learning how to prompt and it's feeding out these prompts and building the code that way and just going with what it does. It can only go so far. It can't, you know, I know some of them are getting better, but gaining the context of what all the classes are, or the file structure, or whether it's MVC or whatever it is that you're doing, it can't grasp the structure of it. So again, like I said, AI is good. And what is it good for, right? When I'm running a file and I'm getting a syntax error and my eyes can't see where is the, you know, where's the scope? Where's the curly brace that I'm missing? Where is the, you know, semicolon is a little easier because you'll always be able to find it in PHP, but you know, where's the curly brace that I'm missing? What's wrong here? It's great. You throw in the code snippet, be like, oh, here it is. La 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 la. Copy paste that sucker right back in there. Great, because it's good at recognizing things like that. It's great at algorithms too, right? And for those people out there who are like, and I am the farthest thing from an algorithm dev. I've never been tested on them or anything like that, right? I probably couldn't even tell you, like I know some of them, but I don't know them, right? Like I know what they do and kind of how to do some of them. But, you know, for me, I've never needed them. But they're fantastic at writing algorithms because algorithms are 2 + 2, right? 2 + 2 = 4, right? When it looks at bubble sort, it's like bubble sort's bubble sort. That's what we do, right? Like, so again, that's another thing that they're really great at, right? And like here, I'm saying they're great at checking syntax. They're great at algorithms, making sure they're right? They're like, it's like the Scantrons, right? The Scantron test. Remember we used to fill in all the little boxes, right, as a multiple choice? That's what AI is doing. It's checking the Scantron test, checking against what it knows. This is right, this is wrong. It tells you what it is. They can't be creative. They are not creative at all. So they're not exactly good problem solvers, right? Because as an experienced developer, you run into an issue and you've seen that once in your life, right? Something happens. Let me try to think of a good example. Like, I can't think of something off the top of my head. It might come to me, but like you run into an issue with something and you're like, oh, well, that's not going to happen to me again. You know, it was for me with jQuery. I was doing something that was using jQuery, and I'm not really a jQuery guy, but in our code base, it's there, right? So I do have to interact with it from time to time. And I was doing something within the JavaScript, and I was trying to pass variables between functions. I was calling like an API to return something, and then doing something with that, and then calling the API with the next thing that I needed, right? Like, so long story short is I was doing a lot of .then, you know what I mean? And so I would go .then, do this thing, and I couldn't get the information back to where I needed it. And it's because jQuery, the way it works is it basically fires on the load, right? So when you load the page, jQuery runs, and then it never, like the state of what's in there never can be manipulated again, so to speak. So when I was trying to update these things and get the variable passed back, I couldn't do it. So the way I solved it was I put it into local storage. So rather than trying to pass it back and forth, threw it into the local storage in the browser, and then I was able to grab it in the newer JavaScript from local storage, right? And then manipulate it the way I needed to. So I know now, whenever I see jQuery and try to do that, it's not gonna work. What does work is I can tap into the local storage, throw it in there, and use it. And I know that instantly. Don't have to troubleshoot, don't have to go through all the problems again that I went through, right? I know if there's a problem, okay, that solution is right there, right? Creative solution to figure that out. AI doesn't know that. AI is going to try to work within the confines of what you're showing it. And it might not recognize that, you know, the jQuery is called, it's done and over, and now you can't pass things back to jQuery. Probably doesn't realize that, right? It's just going to continue to tell you to try this and that and the other thing when it's completely fruitless. So it's not very creative at problem solving, and it's not very creative at building things, right? It's never going to, AI's never going to have something that's on, like, oh God, what the hell is the one that has all the nice front ends that you can get inspired by, you know, like, oh, nice stuff to look at. AI only knows what it's been fed already. It doesn't have a creative thought, right? It's not like, oh, well, maybe we should try this, right? Not gonna happen. So it's another problem. AI is just not creative at all. So again, when you're vibe coding, right, you're getting reused ideas, right? Probably problems or fixes that don't work. It's probably bad code, right? And now you're stringing this all together, and you get down the line and you run into a problem. You can't feed all that code base to an AI. You know, it's not gonna know it. You can't figure it out. And yes, it can be fed the rules of Laravel. It could be fed all of Laravel's documentation, right? And it can pull from that and say, oh, well, here's this and that and all this other thing. But sometimes when we code, we do things on purpose that maybe don't follow what the AI is exactly needs, or what the AI is programmed to do. Okay, so there's that. What else? AI is not human, right? So like, sometimes as human beings, we can be wrong. I know that's hard to admit, but sometimes we're wrong. And let me turn on its head. Web developers, how many times have you been out there and you have a client that tells you what they want, and as they're telling you, in your head, you're thinking like, that's not gonna work. Like, you know that's not gonna work, right? Why? Because you've been through it, right? You've tried what they wanted to do, or you've seen enough of what they do to know that this is eventually not going to be what they want, right? And then as a human being, you can be like, hey, listen, I've worked with this company before. Here's their website. Here's what they did, right? Here are all the different things that you could do, right? So like, as a human, there's that listening and learning and responding thing. Whereas AI is a subservient, meaning, hey, jump how high, right? Not always what we need as a human being, right? Sometimes we need to be told no. Sometimes we need to, maybe just need to be told no. Or sometimes we need someone else to inspire something else, right? And then you start the brainstorming thing, right? You start here's okay, dare to say it, you start vibing off the other person, off the other human being, and you start to think and start to dream and create. Again, you become creative. AI just can't do that. It never will do that. It's good, and it's certainly going to get better, but the idea of sitting there and just prompting, it just doesn't make sense to me. The last thing too is people are like, you need to learn how to prompt right now. AI, you got to learn how to prompt it. That's going to be the future of coding. So it's not going to be important anymore to code. It's more going to be important to be specific in what you tell the AI. Okay, I can see this point. The problem is it's going to change. All right? Because it's going to get better inevitably. And it's going to become more like, at least I believe, it'll become more like plain English, right? Rather than having to say, well, I have this project written in PHP, and I have this class called whatever, and then all these different topics and the things that you need, when you're trying to give context to AI. And then, you give it enough, and then it can spit out somewhat general of a good idea, right? Well, it's all well and good, but as it gets better, it's gonna become more like a plain English, right? So you say, I'm writing this thing in PHP, I need a website that does XYZ, and it'll be able to do it. But it's still gonna need to be reviewed. It's still gonna do things that don't make sense. So I don't know. That's another issue I have with the whole vibe coding thing. Is it's like you're gonna spend so much time. You're better off being late to this party. And everyone says you got to be early in it, and I think you're better off being late because it's only going to get better, and then it's only going to get so good. So you might as well, like those early adopters, are going to be. I think it's like a good point is like React with React hooks and how there weren't always React hooks. I learned React later than most people, so like it used to be more of an object-based kind of library, and so like if you came around later, like I did, there were already hooks there. You didn't have to mess with the object way of doing things or anything like that, and it's better that way. I didn't have to go and learn a way that's really not used anymore. So that's the other thing, right? But that's kind of like my take, like this whole vibe coding thing. Like sit back and just look. The code's not going to be good. He's going to have to review it. It's going to break. The AI can't get enough context, so you might as well just do it the old-fashioned way. Learn what the hell you're doing. Get good at it. Become a master of your craft. And I use the word master loosely because technology is always changing. So you're never gonna like master it. You're gonna get really good at it, but and you could be, very, very fluent in the task at hand. But you're never gonna master it because there's so much to learn. Anyways, that's my take. That's my take on vibe coding. If I hear it again, I'm gonna punch someone in the face. I'm so tired of hearing about it. But anyways, I'm just kidding, all right? But seriously, AI is cool. It's going to be a detriment to people learning, and I think it's going to slow down here. I think it's gotten really good and it's made very good leaps and bounds in the last couple of years, but it's going to slow down, and it's just going to become another tool in the developer's tool belt, because I think it can only do so much. And that's why, like, when people are panicking about being software developers and that AI taking your job, it's not going to. It's just going to change it a little bit, and it's probably actually going to open up more doors, because those people that love vibe coding, they're probably going to have a vibe coding specialist someday. They'll have a job for that. And then the other ones that don't want to write shitty code, they'll be writing code just like I am writing code today. So that's my take on it. Sarah Codes. Like, subscribe, check out my podcast, the PH Podcast and Apple Podcast. And leave a comment below if there's some other topics you want me to talk about. Thanks, guys. Have a good one.